Andrew Scheer talks inflation, while the recommendations from the Liberal Party get laughed at in the House. This Liberal seems to think that talking to the media is the solution to the Conservative Party's agenda. Please like, subscribe, turn on your notifications, and most of all, comment down below. Here's the clip.
The Prime Minister told Canadians not to worry about his massive deficits and borrowing and spending because he said interest rates would stay low for a very long time. Then he turned around and pumped $400 billion into Canada's banking system, causing prices to rise. Now, to fight inflation that the Liberals caused, the Bank of Canada has again jacked up interest rates. And for the average mortgage in Vancouver, that means families will have to find another $1,900 a month just to stay in their own homes. So, has the government been briefed on how many Canadians will have to turn their keys over to the bank as they struggle to pay these rising mortgage costs?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, we've put a fiscally responsible affordability plan on the table in this House, and it'll be my pleasure to answer questions on the economy today. But, Mr. Speaker, the new Conservative leader hasn't answered a single question from journalists in nearly 50 days, Mr. Speaker. Canadians don't have the luxury of doing some of their job and not other aspects of their job. So if the new Conservative leader would like to take home his full paycheck paid for by the Canadian taxpayer, he needs to answer questions from journalists in the press gallery today.
The Honourable House Leader for the Official Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister hasn't answered a question in this House in 7 years. And we're here answering questions on behalf of Canadians who are struggling to pay their mortgage costs just to stay in their own homes. The typical family in Hamilton who now has to renew their mortgage payments will have to come up with an extra $1,300 a month just to stay in the home that they've already been living in. The Prime Minister said that he was going to go into debt so that Canadians didn't have to. So where should families in Hamilton send the bill for their higher mortgage costs?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, families in Hamilton and right across the country will receive in a few days a doubling of the GST tax credit, Mr. Speaker. And this feigned compassion from the Conservatives opposite, the day after they vote against providing supports to Canadians in the form of direct payments for those Canadians having trouble paying the rent, the day after they voted against subsidizing dental care for Canadian children, Mr. Speaker, this feigned compassion from the Conservatives is fooling no one.
Well done.
The Honourable House Leader for the Official Opposition.
What we're against, Mr. Speaker, are the inflationary deficits that this government is causing. The reasons why prices are going up today is because the government flooded the banking system with $400 billion of brand new cash, and now Canadians have to pay for it. Again, a typical family, these are based on modest estimates from the Canadian Real Estate Association, a typical family in Ottawa will have to come up with an extra $1,000 a month when they go to renew their mortgage. So once again, has the government been briefed on how many Canadian families are going to lose their home because of the Liberal-caused inflation?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the Conservatives don't seem to understand that while the prices of things continue to rise in Canada, we need to be there to support Canadians. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are seeing higher prices at the grocery stores, and that is why we doubled the GST tax credit. That is why the Competition Bureau is currently beginning the investigation process into the market. That is why supermarkets across this country have frozen their prices, while the Conservatives are working on their next gimmicky lines. Mr. Speaker, we are serious about a serious issue in this country, and we're taking real action.
The Honourable Member for Emergencyact. Mr. Speaker, there are people who are unable to buy groceries at the end of the month. There are people who are paying $800 more per month for their mortgage payments, Mr. Speaker. That's not a gimmicky line. It's about the livelihood of Canadians because, Mr. Speaker, this government has spent billions of dollars. It has created inflation. It has increased interest rates, which means that now every single Canadian is having trouble. Mr. Speaker, how many families are going to have to go bankrupt because of this NDP Liberal coalition? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, It's been barely 12 hours since the Conservatives voted against a measure to put more money in the pockets of Canadians. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives' economic plan is to rob our pensions, is to attack the EI system in this country, and the Conservatives don't have Canadians' interests at heart. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-Lérable. Mr. Speaker, since the beginning of the question period, the Parliamentary Secretary has not once answered the questions we have been asking her. That is, how many families will be bankrupt at the end of the month because of the inflationary policies of this NDP Liberal coalition. These families are not able to pay their mortgages at the end of the month. In Montreal, for an average family, we're talking about $800 more per mortgage payment every single month on a house that is worth $500,000. Mr. Speaker, through you, how many Canadians are going to have to turn their keys because of the inflationary policies of this government? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, we said in this House that we wanted to cut taxes for low-income families. The Conservatives voted against that. When we moved the Canada Child Benefit, which puts more than $13,000 in the pockets of lone parents, the Conservatives voted against it. And yesterday they voted against additional measures to help Canadian households. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives need to look in the mirror and realize that they don't have the interests of Canadians at heart.